quick overview and review and rundown of the writing process before we dive into our narrative essay writing. So, the writing process is just a 5-step process you take when formulating any kind of paper. You can use it when you have a week to write your essay. You can use it when you're sitting in class during a test writing an essay. You can also use it on the ACT. I highly, highly, highly recommend using this for the ACT because it allows you to organize your thoughts and keep your ideas organized and easily accessible. You first want to start with an outline or your pre-writing step. So this is when you generate, develop, and think about your ideas, your organization, and voice. What you're going to write about, how you're going to write about it, what you want to say, how you want to say it, what you want to get across. You can use the outline I provided in the next couple of slides. And I like to have my thesis in my outline. Go ahead and get that written out, over with. That way I can come back to it while I'm writing and just easily look at it. Once you have your outline ready, you will draft. And this is just writing your essay in 5 paragraphs. You're organizing how you want your thoughts to come across into constructive sentences and paragraphs. And then you're going to revise. You're just going to make sure everything flows. Have your ideas in the right spot, the right paragraph. Then you're going to add and delete, develop, whatever you want to do to adjust it. This is just for your ideas and organization and your voice. Then you want to make basic edits. So you're just editing for grammatical corrections. And once you have edited thoroughly, then you are ready to publish. So you first want to think about your thesis. And your thesis expresses the main idea of your writing. It makes a claim and directly answers a question. The thesis is always at the last sentence in your first paragraph, and it's made up of 3 parts. Limited subject, your precise opinion. I should know exactly what you're arguing when I read your thesis. And you want to include your reasons or your blueprint. So your 3 middle paragraphs. So when you write a thesis, you're basically following a formula to get across what you will be arguing in your essay. And once you have a good idea of your thesis, you can start with your outline. I like to use Roman numerals. It's just easy for me to look at, keep it organized. I can line it up how I like to, so I know where exactly everything is going. So like I said in my introduction, on my first Roman numeral, I like to have my thesis written out. That way I can easily come back to it whenever I need to. Then your second Roman numeral will be your topic sentence 1. And you're just going to state your first reason from your thesis. And then you're going to have 3 to 5 sentences explaining that topic sentence using details. This is where you would include textual evidence, things like that. And you'll repeat that for 3 paragraphs. And then in your concluding paragraph, you are just wrapping it up and making sure everything comes back together. It's always important. You don't want to directly restate your first paragraph because it's redundant. You just want to tie back to it. And I don't mind conclusions only being about 3 or 4 sentences, just as long as you can wrap it up in your conclusion. Now that we have gone over the writing process, let's talk about writing a personal narrative. For this quarter, we will be writing a reflective narrative, so pay attention so you all know how to write one and what you will need to include in your personal narrative. The purpose of a personal narrative is to tell something that happened to you and your feelings about it. It is a story in which you show a realization about yourself and life and share that with the audience. So mainly you're going to identify an instance in your life, talk about how it made you feel, and then reflect on it, saying what you think about it now, your feelings now. No matter who reads your story, you have to work on vivid descriptions to appeal to your audience. So you should be able to identify your audience before you write and how you want to get your point across to that audience. You always have to think about who will be reading your essay, writing, short story, anything, and make sure that they can relate to it, basically. And your tone really needs to come through. It shouldn't be dry, boring writing. You should use details to let your tone shine through. I should be able to read your essay and know exactly what you think or how you feel or what you're feeling while you're writing. Your story is in first person because you're writing about something that happened to you. It can be informal. You just have to make sure you're getting your point across through your tone. Details. It's very important in narrative writing that you are showing and not telling. Show the audience what is going on by describing what you sense. Sight, sound, taste, touch, smell. So you basically write with your senses. Example, don't just show that you felt the snowball hit your head before you fell down and heard everyone laugh. Instead of saying, I fell, the snowball hit me in the face, everybody laughed at me, you can say, the sting of the hard-packed ice against my cheek instantly brought tears to my eyes. As I flinched away, the ice proved too much for me to keep my balance, and my legs slid away out from under me. The sickening thud of my body hitting the ground was fodder for the vicious crowd, and they cackled mercilessly as I struggled to get back on my feet. This sounds way more appealing than just saying, I got hit and I fell. Everybody laughed at me. Think about these adjectives, these adverbs, the sickening thud, the sting, cackled mercilessly. Those details are what elevate your writing drastically. Here's another example. I was really nervous. She called on me to answer the question. I didn't know the answer. She stood right by me and I started to cry. She told me I won the Doorknob of the Day award. This happened right in front of the whole class. So this is a little dry. Let's see if we can liven it up a little bit. First, we need to look at the ordinary verbs. Was, called, know, stood, started, told, happened. I think we can add a little more detail and livelier verbs to this statement. My heart stopped each time she paused before calling on her next victim. I knew I didn't understand how to do the algebra problems. I just didn't want her to know. Then I heard my name and every nerve in my body froze. I couldn't do anything except look down at the paper. Well, I heard her screech as she loomed over me. I could not speak. I heard someone mumble disgustedly, "Geez, this was easy." That's when the tears began to blur my eyesight and I willed them not to fall onto my paper. She didn't notice my tears, and she wouldn't have cared anyway. She just clicked away on those high heels of hers, saying, "Well, I guess you win the Doorknob of the Day award." I got off easy since she was capable of a cruelty far beyond that. See, with this passage, you can feel how nervous the writer is. Instead of saying, I was nervous, you actually know exactly how this writer feels. Through details like, my heart stopped each time she paused before calling on her next victim. So this is saying how nervous he or she is thinking about the teacher calling on him or her. And then words like screech, loomed, froze. Again, you want to be able to paint an image for your reader to show them exactly what you're feeling. In your narrative writing, you should have a point. Were you somehow different at the end of your experience? If so, how exactly did you change? Did you learn something new about yourself? What? Did you learn something new about other people, human nature, or life in general? What was it? So this is your reflection. What did you gain from the experience? What did you learn? What did you not learn? Did you learn anything? Did you gain anything? Did you lose something? Did someone else learn something? You need to have a point and be able to state how this affected you. The meaning of your piece needs to be able to be interpreted by your reader. You have to be able to bring out the meaning and they understand what the meaning is. So let's go back to the example from the algebra class. We should be able to interpret the meaning from the passage. The student is afraid of the teacher. The student always feels embarrassed that he or she doesn't understand the math. The teacher is not a really compassionate person. So this is what we should have been able to interpret from the writing. And we can see that when he calls the teacher cruel, or his heart skipped, and he said, I knew I didn't understand how to do the algebra problems, I just didn't want her to know. Body froze. Mumble, geez, this was easy. That makes him or her agitated and nervous that everyone else is understanding it except him or her. When you're setting up a narrative, you're introducing it with an attention grabber. You can use your incident like this. You can go deep into your incident, describing it. You're giving the background of the story. You can start with an action and then identify the incident by only using the action. You can start with dialogue. You can have in quotes a kind of ridiculous statement, and that kind of grab your reader's attention, and that then you can go into describing it. What does that dialogue pertain to? Remember to show that dialogue, though. Don't just say, he said this. You can be like, the man from the speaker blurted, da 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 da. You can start with a description of a character. You can describe the setting, or you can just start with your point. Such and such made me realize that, and then you can go into a deep encounter of your experience. The point is, there are many ways to set up your narrative with an attention grabber. With dialogue, never use dialogue unless it is necessary, and how you punctuate your dialogue. Begin a new paragraph when the speaker changes. Use quotation marks around the words. Separate dialogue tags from the rest of the sentence with a comma, a question mark, or an exclamation point. Begin a new sentence with a capital letter. Do not capitalize the second half of a sentence that is separated by the dialogue tag. Let's look at some examples of dialogue. Watch out, he screamed as he ran toward her. There's a car coming. You see how the punctuation is in this statement. Watch out, exclamation point before the quotation. And then they didn't capitalize he. He screamed as he ran toward her, period. There's a car coming, exclamation point. I'm trying to get out of the way, she shouted, as fast as I can. But she had dropped her money and was desperately trying to pick it up quickly. Without that money, she knew she would not be eating that week. Okay, so here's an example of commas in your quotation. Comma is before the quotation, and you still keep she lowercase. And then when you begin the second half of the quotation, you have another comma and quotation, and this still stays lowercase. And that is it for narrative writing for now. When we are writing our own narratives, there are things from this PowerPoint that I will be looking for in your writing as well as other stuff. So make sure you check out the rubric, the prompt, all that. But if y'all have any questions, let me know.